Hey everyone, welcome. Today on our broadcast, we have Cathy Hotka. She is a retail industry influencer, insider, and catalyst for innovation. Cathy has spent 7 years as Vice President of IT at National Retail Federation. She created both the NRF CIO Council and NRFTech. And she's been a contributor to Retail Wire, CIO Magazine, Forbes. Retail Information Systems News also ranked her as the fourth most influential pace setter in all of retail. Through her firm, Cathy Hotka and Associates, Cathy hosts highly influential retail think tanks and events. These include the Store Operations Council, VP IT Council, CXO Council, Retail Brainstorm, and the famous Retail Insiders Party at NRF. These are events where brand leaders come together to share innovative ideas and strategies that will move their businesses and the retail industry in general forward. With that, I'd like to welcome Cathy Hotka. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Aaron. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I've got some questions to ask, so if you're ready, we can jump right in.
Let's do it.
All right. Cathy, you've been supporting retailers for decades. Why have so many retail executives come to trust and attend your events, do you think?
They want to hear from each other. That's their main source of information is their colleagues. So my job is to put together venues where they can see each other, compare notes, learn something from a sponsor, and create relationships so that somebody from a hardware store chain can benchmark against somebody from a beauty chain easily because they know each other and they trust each other.
And can you tell us, how did your most recent event, the Store Operations Council, go? I'm wondering who was in attendance, maybe if you can share some of those aha moments. I've been there, and maybe some general takeaways.
We had a ton of fun. We were in Nashville this year, so that meant a lot of bourbon and Nashville hot chicken. We had a great time. We had dozens of retailers, and they were there to compare notes on what's going on at their companies, what they think is going to happen next year, and some of the technologies that are changing the way they do business. And we heard some really interesting presentations, one from Dollar General on how they cope with opening between 3 and 4 stores a day. Another from Tractor Supply Company, which just gets bigger and more influential every day. It's amazing.
Which consumer trends do you see driving retail right now?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that our participants talked about. One is changing customer behavior based on inflation. So, if you go down the freezer aisle at your grocery store and ice cream is $8, you're probably not going to buy it. So that's one thing that's changing. We're also seeing earlier holiday shopping because there's inventory insecurity, and people want to be sure that if there's an item that they want to give somebody, that they get it early.
From a retailer's perspective, what do you see as working and what's not working right now? What are you hearing at your events?
Well, that's what's really cool. One of the things that we know is that winning retail companies are spending on technology. They're not holding back. They're not going to wait until next year to see if they should or not. It was obvious during the pandemic that they had to do some new spending. And when they did, it really moved the needle. So we're seeing innovation in the way they do business. We're seeing new adoption of technology and a real serious uptick in customer engagement, but also associate engagement, because retail companies are having trouble getting people to work there. So if they have people who do work there, it's important to make sure that those people are happy.
Can you dig a little deeper and give me a sense of what are retail CIOs' biggest challenges and priorities? What are you hearing from a technology standpoint?
Well, retail's always behind. I don't think that's a pejorative. I think that's probably just a fact. At the same time that technology needs to advance. So CIOs are balancing priorities. They want to put more into the store, but they need to put more into analytics, and they need to make sure that omni-channel commerce works. Sometimes it's tough to take this number of priorities to a board of directors and say, we need to do all of these things right now. But that's kind of what is happening. And the companies that are making noise are doing the investing.
It's a difficult environment for sure right now. Are there any common solutions or approaches that you've been seeing or hearing retailers adopt?
Well, number one is if it's not in the cloud, it needs to be.
Hmm.
All those old legacy systems that people were putting in 2001 and 2002 have got to go. Their day has passed. And also a better understanding of how data can influence decision making. I think we've had a number of years where companies have invested in data analytics technologies, and then they don't take their advice. They look at it, they get it handed off to some guy who goes, well, I know what the numbers say, but I think purple's going to be big this year. Um, we need to let machines do some of the work. There's still way too much human bias.
You mentioned actually Tractor Supply, but are there any other standout brands that are setting the pace right now in retail?
Yeah, so many, so many. So Walmart and Target, first of all, have been doing amazing things, just amazing. Walmart, for instance, has a really amazing program for educating their associates and getting them recognition and accomplishment. So, and Target does everything right. But I'm thinking of some others as well. Hudson News in the airport. Think of how Hudson News fared during the pandemic. People weren't traveling. They couldn't go into the airport. So they went down to skeleton crews and were not making the revenue they wanted to make. Now that people are back, there are not enough people to work these stores. And some of the restaurants in the airport also can't find enough people. So Hudson News has, for instance, adopted the Just Walk Out technology in some of their stores. I saw it in Nashville at the airport, where all you have to do is scan a credit card to go in, walk around, pick up whatever you want, including food items, and then just walk out. The other segment that I think is on fire is beauty. Now that the pandemic's over, we can all wear lipstick again. And the cosmetics companies have been on a tear. They're just doing wonderful things.
What opportunities do you see for solution providers in the market now? Is there anything that needs to be addressed?
Yes. So this is personal bias on my part. Retailers need technology right now. They need a lot of it. I think one of the opportunities is for technology companies to, instead of selling the technology, sell the use case. Explain why a given retailer should deploy your technology. And that's not as simple as it looks, because technologists have to put themselves in the position of the customer, but that's going to be really important going through. They need to come up with use cases that are in English that your aunt who's not in retail can understand. What they ought to do is talk less about how it works and talk more about how retailers can use it. The other opportunity for technology companies is to brag about their experience in the industry. If they've got people at that company who used to work at Home Depot or used to work at Ace Hardware, they ought to brag about it and make a big deal about it.
As retailers and solution providers look ahead to NRF, what do you think the highlights will be?
Oh boy, NRF is going to be fun this year because nobody was there last year. So everybody's going to be really excited. The big story of last year's NRF was the Innovation Lab. I think that's probably going to be true again this year, and there's some really interesting companies that are going to be there. One thing that technology companies can do, there are hundreds of thousands of retail companies, but in terms of big retail companies that you've heard of, that's a finite number. That's in the hundreds. So if you're going after CIOs at those companies, you're going after just hundreds of people. If that's the case, your marketing can change dramatically from taking out billboards in airports, which is going to cost a fortune, into way more personal approaches and personal advertising. So I think it's important that technology companies subsidize and associate themselves with events where they're going to actually meet real live retail decision makers and get to know your sales prospects as people.
Oh yes, and your events do a great job of that, and that's why I think people love them. Cathy, it's been a pleasure to know you and get to attend some of those events over the years. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to answer my questions today. It's been great.
I had a blast. Thank you, Aaron.